Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, guys. Welcome to the live stream. It's good to be here. It's great to connect with all of you. And today I am talking about boundaries. One second. It's cool because I got a message from someone who said that, hey, I really love your content. I'm following you for a while now, since last week. However, I cannot accept your friend request because, I only use my account for very close friends, and I don't know you like that. I just know you as an influencer, as a person whose content that I consume. So I hope you don't mind. I won't accept your friend request. Okay, that was just a little like affirmation notification. I get those throughout my day, guys. I get affirmation notifications throughout my day, so you know what it is. Also, right now I'm looking for a boxing coach. I think I'm going to start off with boxing and then move on to another martial arts. Perhaps make the transition from boxing to kickboxing, but I'm not too sure. But yeah, that's the intention that I have. But yeah, thought it was interesting how I got that message right before I was about to do this live stream. And, the idea of boundaries towards flow is a very, very interesting topic because we always talk about having clear goals. We always talk about having this idea of, okay, a river needs boundaries, right? Otherwise, it's going to go everywhere. So to have boundaries means you have set a limit on something. Understand the boundaries are very, very different from red flags, okay? Red flags is like an absolute no, okay? A red flag is like, nope, I'm putting my foot down, absolutely not. It's like, next, okay? A lot of people see red flags as like warning signs. No, warning sign would be completely different. A red flag is just like absolutely off the table. Like you shouldn't even consider that because it's absolutely unhelpful or it's going to wound you in the long term. So yeah, boundaries. We always talk about this idea of obstacle becomes the way, right? Obstacle is the path. Roadblocks become building blocks, whatever way you want to say it. I think it's really simple, and I'm going to try and describe it in my own way. A lot of people think boundaries are like these walls that you can't cross over. However, what boundaries actually is actually like a form of emanation. Okay? It's a form of emanation, something that's emanating from you. And when you can understand what I mean by that, you can understand what I mean by boundaries because boundaries have to be established towards your character. And usually, 8 or 9 times out of 10, having a lack of boundaries means having a lack of self-worth. Okay? Let me say that again. Having a lack of boundaries means having a lack of self-worth, a low self-esteem. Now, why do I say this? Well, we've got to understand don't accept behavior that you're not going to accept yourself. Okay? And a low self-worth means that you don't know yourself. Scratch that. You don't know your real self. You might have some idea of yourself, but you're not really tapping into your pure, most authentic form that can get you the most effective results on that path of least resistance towards that wu, towards that effortless effort that we talk about on this channel about flow state. So to be a part of that flow, you have to engage with it. You have to build momentum with it. You have to actually activate something within you to get you on that path. Okay, hold on. There's something in my eye, man. I'm not crying. There's actually something in my eye, bro. Yeah. All right. So This is all about protecting your peace, all right, man? Like, once you get to that point where you protect your peace, not like a Glock, right? Not, I'm protecting my peace, bro. No, it's not that. Your peace of mind, okay? Protecting your peace of mind and understanding that nobody has the consent to mess with your state of mind or your peace of mind, because it's all your responsibility, and how you respond to those comments, to those emotions, that truly determines your peace of mind or your state of mind. It's all in a state of mind, as my mentor AZD says, okay? So if you have depression, you need to be constantly stimulated. So you find different ways to stimulate yourself. If you have anxiety, you feel like you need to be sedated because you're too anxious, you're too overwhelmed, right? There's a lot of energy. One is a lack of energy, one is too much energy. Think about that, right? One is a lack of energy, one is too much energy. So if your energy maintenance is not accurate, is not maintained in a healthy way, you're going to suffer from these two different, you can call them disorders, but I call them states of beingness, right? So really start to understand that, do you need to constantly stimulate yourself, or do you constantly need to sedate yourself? There are moments throughout all of our lives where we feel like this, right? We need a little bit of sedation, we need a little bit of stimulation. However, really start to understand that once your self-worth is at a good place, at a healthy place, all those things aren't going to bother you. Because let's say that someone annoys you and you're a kid, right? They pick on you and you still haven't formed the self-identity at that moment. Like, you really don't know who you are, and a bigger kid, an older kid is picking on you. Now, usually that bigger kid, that older kid has a better idea of their self, and so they have that power over you. You see? If you're young, very, very young, I'm saying, you don't have that identity formed yet. It's still in formation phase, right? It's like it's still under construction. And so during that phase where you're trying to absorb and grow, and you're doing certain things to help you to expand in life, and then in that moment of receptivity, of absorption, if somebody makes fun of you, or you know makes you feel bad, that's now becoming a part of the self-identity. And this is what we have to become aware of. So a lot of the times our low self-worth happens in childhood. Okay? It happens in childhood. And those memories, whenever we think back to a certain symbol or a certain memory, or we see something, or a siren is there, or we see an image that portrays that memory, it gets us to feel bad, it gets us to feel weaker, it gets us to feel hurt. Okay? So knowing your boundaries is really about knowing your triggers, knowing what pisses you off, knowing what pushes your buttons. I always say, how do we know? Why is it that the closest people to us push our buttons? It's because they're the ones that installed them in the first place, okay? So, man, what is my hair doing? Damn. It's weird having this new hair, you know what I mean? Like, now I feel like I'm just going to play around with it more. Anyway, boundaries aren't like this kind of ziplock that you can, kind of protect around yourself. You know what I mean? Boundaries are this kind of force field, this protective aura, but it's not like an actual aura. Like you talk about, like, kymatics and auras and all that kind of, it's not an actual aura. It's a psychological aura. Okay. Boundaries are a psychological aura. Okay. So when you get to that place, when others are like, hey, how come I can't push their buttons anymore? It's like I try to annoy them or upset them, but they're just not reacting to me, or I don't know what's up. Like they've healed from my comments or something, right? If your enemy, if your opposition, if your family members, whoever is trying to get at you, right, thinks that, you've won. You have boundaries now. You get what I'm saying? So boundaries comes down to this understanding that you want to feel at safe with yourself. Okay. And a be- a really good response to someone who is maybe making fun of you or not giving you the time of day is to say, I'm sorry that you feel that way, but this is my truth. I've got to be true to myself. And so this is what it is. Okay. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're telling me that, I'm not good enough. Is that what you're saying? Right. So we have to find ways to really understand what people really mean, because sometimes we misunderstand people. That's when arguments start to happen. That's when boundaries uh, become blurred lines, right? Dun, dun, dun. Okay. Like that song, Blurred Lines. So I'm sorry you feel that way, but I need to be true to myself. It's about coming back to that understanding of, let's say that someone's making fun of you, right? I've gotten this before. It's like old friends and stuff. They've been like, hey man, you're being way too woo woo. You're being too spiritual. I don't resonate with that. You know, what can you say to that? Right? What can you say to that really? You can get triggered. You can block them, right? Or if you have boundaries, you could get curious and be like, oh, okay, well, you saying that doesn't make me feel very good, right? And maybe you're misinterpreting what I'm doing or the experience that I'm going through, but clearly we have different lives and different experiences. So maybe you want to hear my perspective, maybe you don't want to hear my perspective. That's okay, right? That's a boundary in a sense. Now you might hear that and be like, "Yo, that's not a boundary." So boundary is like, "No, absolutely not. No, lock the door. Get them out of here." Right? But a real boundary is you speaking your truth in such a way that you have to believe it to be so true in your beingness that it's a part of your character now. That's the most authentic boundary, when your boundaries are actually a part of your character. You see, like my mentor AZD, Raj Bazar, he has tattoos all over himself. Now, initially, why did he get those tattoos? It might have been for different reasons, but I think it's one of the reasons why people won't mess with him anymore. Right? People won't mess with him anymore. The bullies won't get to him anymore. He has an intimidating look, man. Right? And so you've got to understand that in life, we have three relationships. Only three. It's the Trinity, okay? It's whatever you want to call it. But we have three relationships in life. Does anybody know what they are? Does anybody know what the three relationships are in life? Gonna wait 5 more seconds. Okay, I'm gonna tell you. The first relationship is the relationship with self, self to self. Okay, self to self. How you're speaking to yourself, how you're interacting with yourself, your self work, your self worth comes from your self work. Then we have self to other, yourself and somebody else. or whoever you're interacting with at that time. Other people, people who are not you. Okay? Self and other. And the last one is self and universe. Self and God, if you want to even call it that. All right? So the Sufis believe that we have this priority all wrong. We've got to first find a connection to spirit and then work on the other ones. Now, it's an interesting analogy. And it's not so much that we have to prioritize, the universe or God over everything else. But I think it's a very, very interesting analogy because a lot of the times when we commune with this idea, the universe protects me, kind of, whatever, right? We kind of like push it away in a sense, that connection to the divine, right? We're like, hey, divine shows up in all of a sudden in this glorious moment, and we kind of feel like, nah, not for me, right? And that's the low self-worth. That's what I was talking about earlier. That's the feeling of low self-worth when you don't have a communion with the divine, when you don't have a communion with yourself, when you don't have a communion with others. So think of it like this three, right? Now this three, let's say this is other, this is self, this is divine, right? So we could be like this a lot of the time in the world. Understand that the divine and the self are hidden behind the other. What does this mean? This is like codependence, right? It's like, I'll do everything for other people, right? I could do everything for other people and self-sacrifice and be a martyr, right? Ryan Curtis said it so beautifully. You don't need to kill yourself for your cause. You need to love yourself enough for the cause. You get what I'm saying? Like, so that it's like doing everything for others, self-sacrificial mindset, like so ultimately humbled that you start to lose some boundaries actually. But then the self, if your only focus is the self, you see a lot of people, they try to be selfless, but they're still selfish. They're showing to the world, I donated to this charity last week. Well, why did you need to tell me that, Becky? Okay? So a lot of people use this kind of selflessness as selfishness. And some people use selfishness as selflessness, which I'll explain. Let's say you're selfish for your community, right? I'm going to do things so that my tribe or my community can thrive. Now, is that even a selfishness? I don't know. Maybe we can use a different word for that. But there is some phenomenon like that, right? So there are three relationships: you, universe, other. Okay, so we have to keep all of these three intact. We can't forget these relationships. We can't like cut off the circulation to them in a sense. Okay, self-esteem is really important for boundaries. Now, a lot of spiritual people, okay, I'm talking to the spiritual, like really, really spiritual woo-woo people out here. They don't have boundaries because they feel like they're connected to the all. They're connected to everything and everybody and everyone. And their hearts are so open that they have a hard time thinking that this is my physical body. This is me. This is ego. But then what do they tell you in the spiritual community? Get rid of your ego. You amputate it. Never use it again. No. Your ego is your identity. It's who you are. It's your character. Sure, it might skew you in different directions and make you feel bad and make you feel less than and try and preserve and keep you in this kind of like confinement. But at the same time, we need it. We need a healthy ego to function and flourish in the world. Imagine in a jungle you didn't have an ego. Goodness gracious, you get slaughtered. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. Some people are so attached to the absolute that they forget who they are. So we can't be codependent to the absolute. We can't be codependent to ourselves. We can't be codependent with others. There's codependent relationship, independent relationship, and interdependent relationship, which is the most highly functioning. The universe wants to co-create with you. It wants to be on your team. It wants to be your teammate. The same thing if you're working with spirits and things like this. They want to be your teammate. You don't want to put them up on a pedestal, put them really tiny like you're their master. Like, don't do this kind of stuff, guys. We can't suddenly like skew this out of proportion and sort of iconize people when we can humanize them. Okay. You got to go from cellmates to soulmates. And, you know, to make a really big change in your life, like if you want to reinvent yourself, let's say a lot of people, they do things from a wrong place, right? They're like, oh, I got out of a relationship, and so I'm going to do this, and this so that I can get my ex back. Well, you're doing it from a wrong place, my friend. You're not going to see progress in those areas because it's still coming from a really weird place of lack, of insufficiency, of attachment, of codependency, of past thinking, depressive thinking. And that's what you're acting from. Now, this is okay to start as fuel. You're like, I'm going to prove them wrong. All the people who have wronged me, this is my FU body, right? I'm going to do it. That's fine. That's absolutely valid. But if you stay there and you don't rise up to the higher paradigms or the higher motivations, you're going to feel empty. Not the good empty, the Zen empty, the empty, where you feel unfulfilled. Okay? So what you need are higher level motivations. You can tell me that, hey, I want this amazing body, but why? What is the real truth? You have some lower reasons for why, but you also have higher reasons for why. What are those higher reasons? Those higher renditions? Why do you want to travel? Why do you want to make that money? Right? What is the real why? Hey, maybe you want to get a good body because people will listen to you more, and people aren't listening to you right now, and you believe that you have some kind of entitlement thing based on like beauty and people listening to you or something, right? That's completely valid. Like, that's your own truth. So you got to understand that this is all self-awareness work, right? Because the self is what creates the relationship to others, right? The self-love creates the other love and the God love. Okay. So the self is actually like the pinnacle point, the choice point where you can actually start to expand into both of these, right? And you can stay in other and you can stay in God, but it's not going to be self-sustaining. We need a self-sustaining internal ecosystem. Okay. So if you feel the same, you don't reinvent yourself before trying to get your ex back, it's going to be the same story. You're going to get her back. You guys are going to argue and then blah, 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 right? Same patterns. But let's say you go through an incredible change. You go to a new country. You completely transform your look. You have a spiritual awakening. You completely just tarnish your old self, tarnish your old ego. And then you go back into it. Things might actually be different because, hey, you're not running on the same emotions. You're not running on that same fuel source. You were not in the same cycle. You've moved on to a different cycle, from this cycle to another cycle. It's like you've quantum leaped or gone into a parallel universe. Okay? That's the best way that I could describe it. Now, a lot of people, they're so hurt that they can't forgive people. Right? Have you ever had this? You're like, that person did me so wrong, I can never forgive them for what they did. They deserve my resentment, my hate, my anger for the rest of my life. And you constantly hold this grudge. I know, man, I'm a Scorpio, right? So I hold these grudges a lot. Like, it's just natural to my zodiac sign, man. Like, but anyway, I've learned how to come across and really change this dynamic of this, because I think a lot of people have difficulty when it comes to setting boundaries to actually forgive people, and how to keep boundaries but still be loving at the same time. Like, it's a difficult thing. And hey, it sounds cool to say, and you might listen to like some spiritual like guru tell you this, or some kind of practitioner tell you this, and you might be like, yeah, I've heard it 1,000 times, but you're not doing it. That's the thing, right? You might be hearing, hey, love others and don't be a dick and all this kind of stuff, and that's what everybody's essentially saying through different prepackaged models, right? Oprah has one way of saying it, Deepak Chopra has another way of saying it, right? All these different people are just trying to say that through different lens, right? But if you're a badass saying it, it makes a complete difference, right? me saying, yo, love yourself, man, for real, than some, schlub, guy who's a square bear saying it to you, right? It makes a difference. It really does, because we resonate. It's like, who do we like? Who are we responding to? Who are the people that are filling me with energy and vitality today? You see what I'm saying? So forgiveness is the gift that you give yourself. This is the way that I see it. Forgive. Who is it for? It's for you, ultimately, at the end of the day. It's not for anybody else. You might think it's for other people. And yes, ultimately it is for other people, but it is the key so they can free themselves from the shackles of their own pain that they have caused. You see, I've been listening to this chant, man, Akadua. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. It's an old Egyptian chant. A Toltec king, had this chant, Akadua. Man, it just fills me with so much life, and it's almost like a magnet, right? Where you magnetize something and it just like everything else just starts to form around it. Like that's how it feels. It's like it's a contaminant to your consciousness that gets you to the most purest form. That's what this mantra is doing to me. Okay, so if you want, I can link that below. But it's a very, very powerful chant. Uh, Highly recommend it, because when I first heard it, I felt like goosebumps. You get goosebumps, like little shivers through your spine. And then I felt different energies kind of floating away and new energies taking their place. That's how I felt. But anyway, back to the idea of forgiveness, right? So to forgive someone, what does it actually mean? The person forgot who they were, just like you forgot who you were. And that's why you might be having low self-esteem. You forgot who you were. You got to remember who you are. You are the god who went dormant. You are the goddess who went dormant. Who is your true beingness? What do they want? What would your higher self do? Right? So this person that you're trying to forgive, they forgot who they were. So don't speak to the hurtful person in them when you're trying to forgive them. You want to be like, I affirm there is a real you in there somewhere. And I release you to find that real version of you. That is such a powerful, transcendental way to forgive. That I recognize that you are not that hurtful person to me. I release you from this attachment, from this energetic cord, so that you can work on yourself, so that you can find the most authentic and best version of you. And that does something. And even if you forgive yourself like this, it is absolutely phenomenal. It's transcendent, right? It's a transcending. You're transcending. You're ending your trance. Okay. So, what is boundaries? Boundaries is a safety in God, safety in the self, safety in even being around others. Right? What good is it to be all alone when we can't be actually ourselves around others? That's what people have usually a problem with, is they can be themselves when they're alone, but try being yourself around other people. It's difficult at times, especially if you have persona fatigue, especially if you have social anxiety, especially if you're worried about being judged and appearing a certain way in certain areas or classes of society or different kinds of communities and things like this, right? But when you truly belong, not just to the society, not just to the events, not just to the culture, not just to the country, but you belong to this reality overall. You feel like you belong. You feel like you exist here for a reason, because there are no accidents. I don't believe so. Okay. I was born as a miracle. They told me that I wasn't going to be born. Okay. but I was actually born as a miracle. And I don't say that in a condescending way. I'm not trying to be like, oh man, I was born as a miracle baby, like, but this is the story that I was told. And so I did grow up with that feeling of, privilege and entitlement, and that idea of like, oh man, hey, I'm here for a reason, and I've been reminded of that. But then I was also born from trauma. Why? I got a C-section birth. That's being born from trauma. Okay. So really start to understand that there's always two sides of the coin. Okay. With your strengths come your weaknesses. With your weaknesses come your strengths. And vice versa. Some people say like vice versa. Which one is it, man? Is vice or is it visa? All right. So boundaries. Okay. You want to set boundaries almost like it's a part of your character, right? It's a part of your identity. You don't want to do it like did it once, never again, right? You don't want to set a boundary then run away, right? That's not what boundaries setting is. Setting boundaries is like I've set the boundary, I'm maintaining the boundary, I'm cultivating it. I learned something very beautiful, a Sanskrit word for gratitude. Do you guys want to hear it? The Sanskrit word for gratitude is kritajna. Krita means cultivation. And jna, right? Jna is a state of consciousness, a particular state of consciousness. So think about this. Gratitude is a cultivation consciousness. Ooh, I'm going to be like Ralph Smart. Ooh, slow motion this side. Ooh, slow motion that side, right? Gratitude is a cultivation consciousness. It's not, oh, I'm grateful once in Thanksgiving and then it's done. No, it's cultivating the seed. It's watering the gratitude that really matters. It's not doing the gratitude as a virtue signaling exercise and like showing the world, hey there, Susie, look how grateful I am today. But then someone I was invited to Rex Sykes' clubhouse group, right? And somebody said, you know what? I'm really grateful for being tired. And I was like, damn, thank you. Thank you for your authenticity, because like I've never heard that before, like, oh, I'm grateful for being tired. Why are you grateful for being tired? So I can rest. So I have that, that lack of energy is my body responding and telling me that I need to rest. And so I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for my senses. And that is the embodied gratitude that we need. Okay, why did I start talking about gratitude? Anyway, yeah, I just wanted to share that word with you. Kritajna, I think is a very powerful word. Cultivation consciousness, right? It's a long-term game. Okay, gratitude is a long-term game. Just like happiness is a long-term game, right? Short-term happiness is like bursts of dopamine and hedonic pleasure that doesn't get you anywhere, right? It does. It feels good, but it's not that legacy. It's not that business. It's not that family. It's not that lifestyle, right? It's just a little thing. It's just an instant gratification thing. So anyway, boundaries have to be set long term like this as well. Oh, that's why I like them, right? Boundaries have to be long term, right? Unless you decide to change on that boundary. That's completely valid too. But you've got to decide. Decide, meaning to cut out all other options that don't vibe with that thing, right? And so once you decide on this is what the boundary is, right? So what is the vibe check that you have for your business? Do you let everybody work with you? All right. Well, I've got to vibe with them though. But what does that mean? What does that mean? Right. And then you start to really understand that, okay, if they get back to me by this specific time, if they're of this age range, if they're in my target market, if I like speaking to them on our first call and we have a very spontaneous conversation, right? And now you make a list in your own mind. And what are you doing? You're creating a framework. You're creating boundaries in a sense. Vibe does attract tribe. Exactly. That's true too. So if you're just like vibing in your own business, and you're doing your own thing, that people are going to spot you out and be like, hey, I like that guy. I like that girl. Right. And so there is that automaticity, right? Automatically, you're getting that by just being in that vibe. So what is the vibe of having a boundary, right? What does that look like in terms of a character? Oh, my character is a strong and resilient personality. He has a lot of grit. He has a backbone. He has a straight spine. Wow, now I'm understanding that this person is really serious, right? If they say they're going to do something, they're going to do it. They're not going to mess around. Now I understand that this person's identity is already broadcasting to the universe. There's a boundary. There's a boundary. No one's going to come up to that person and try to rob them or pickpocket them. You know what I mean? No one's going to come up to them and be like, hey, do you want to buy my product in the middle of the street? No, because they emanate something that's just like, don't mess with me, right? And that's one way to do a boundary, right? Is to incorporate the boundary into the character. So you never have to deal with this people. You're repelling certain people away already, right? Your personality is a repellent so that's what polarization is, right? Polarization is just creating a boundary in the persona, which means the mask, right? So the mask that you're wearing already repels certain people, and some people are like, hey, I kind of like that mask. That's really cool. That helps me out a lot. Thank you, right? And then they vibe with it. But certain people will be like, hey, that mask is a little bit crooked, or hey, is that a comedian mask? That nose looks a little bit too big for me. I don't know. I don't vibe with that. And that's okay, because you are a person with polarization, with boundaries, and you're coming across a very specific way, right? And so my advice to you would be, when you set boundaries, make sure you maintain them. When you set boundaries, make sure that you believe in them and they're something that is very true to you. Don't do it like your parents told you to get a job, so you got a job. That's codependence. That's not a boundary, right? It's like someone who comes around and what does weak boundaries look like, right? Because if we want to learn about boundaries, we got to look at what does weak boundaries look like. Someone tells you, hey, you want to go to the mall today? And you're tired and you're like, you didn't sleep at all and you could really use a nap, but you're like, yeah, you know what? I'm a little bit tired today, but yeah, I'll go. And then that whole interaction, you're like falling asleep. You're like not even wanting to walk through the mall, right? You're sitting down and like you're just like trying to eat ice cream with them or whatever, but you're just like dozing off. That's weak boundaries, right? You couldn't tell them. You couldn't tell them that, nah, I need to sleep, bro. Right? You just couldn't tell them. And so that boundary was not set. That frame of reality was not set. The way you saw the world was not set. It's a mindset, right? And so let's think of another example of weak boundaries. Does anybody have any that you could say? Let's say that reacting after someone flakes on you on a date, right? This happened to one of my clients. He got to the subway to meet this girl. She kind of looked at him and walked away, right? Kind of a flake, but also really hurts, right? So he was calling me at that time. He's like, man, what do I do? This girl just like saw me and like she walked away, and like I feel so bad, and I don't know what to do. And first of all, breathe. Brother, how would you have run your day otherwise? I don't know, maybe I was planning to go shopping with her, watch a movie, you know, and I don't know, read. Brother, go and do those things with that energy. Transmute that energy that you feel right now and treat yourself to the best version of you. How would the best version of you treat yourself? Go and do that. Watch that movie alone. That's not sad, in my opinion. I think that's badass to watch a movie theater when you're the only one. There's no one there to distract you, no one there to eat your popcorn. Go for it, man. And go shop for yourself that day, right? Go and read like you said you would, all right? Go to the park. Like, deal with the emotions of that. Because a loss does not have to signify a loss if you don't react to it. If a loss is a loss, you can just think of it as a lesson, right? If you just think of it as a lesson, like, hey, maybe I should have texted them beforehand. Maybe I should have, give them my picture. Maybe, like, this is why catfishing is so awful. You know what I mean? Like, it's such an awful thing to catfish someone, I think. I mean, I've probably done it when I was like super young just for fun or whatever, but it's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's such a disingenuous thing to do. Like, give your picture from 8 years back or whatever. Man. Or like, I don't know, just like give a completely different person's picture. Um, it's weird, man. We're dealing with these weird worlds of online and offline and things. But then again, like some of you guys I haven't even met in person, but I know you're freaking awesome. You know what I mean? Like, but we stopped making this thing about the actual socializing, right? At times we do. It's like we see a conversation and we're just like, I'd rather ignore that text. Like, I don't want to, you know. We have that thing inside us. We do, and the thing about it is acknowledging it. Like someone in my group, Flow Jedi's today, he said, "Hey man, I've been looking at all these posts. I forgot. I'm paraphrasing, right? Sorry for that, Joshua, but in a sense, I'm paraphrasing what you said. You said, I'm reading through all this, but I feel like my superpower is looking at texts and not responding or something along those lines, right? But that vulnerability, the authenticity actually made me closer to Josh when he said that, you know? Other people are doing that too in my group. But Josh is the only one with the cojones to come out of there and be like, yo, I'm seeing all these posts, but I just feel like I'm not responding, and that thank you. You know? Thank you for that. That's pure communication. That's honesty. If someone looks at me and they're like, I'm sorry, but I really do, I'm not single. I do have a boyfriend. I'm not messing with you. Like, I'm not like just saying it just to say it, just to have you bugger off. Like, I actually am in love with this man. Like, I'll be like, yo, I respect that. Good for you guys. That's awesome. I mean, that's what I want for everybody, is just to be happy. But then again, not always, because that's like an ice cream man trying to make everybody happy. But the honesty, the truth, the expression that I respect of them not leading me on, and them not wasting my time, them not being like, oh, ha ha ha, yeah, but you know what I mean? Someone who's firm in their boundaries goes, yo, I'm single. Or, yo, I'm not single. Right? There's not this kind of situationship, like, oh, it's complicated relationship online, or it's like, yeah, he's kind of this guy that I'm seeing right now, and okay, what are these blurred lines? That's not a boundary. Okay, in relationships, we really need to establish healthy boundaries. Okay, I'm talking to the third person that just walked in. You, specifically you. This is like, um, we need to really establish boundaries, not just in our relationships, but in our health, in our wealth, right? Like, think of this. How many times do you actually check your bank account, right? And you feel like this inherent fear. But guess what? Those are just numbers, right? They're just numbers. It's your interpretation of what those numbers mean in the storyline of your life, where you're like, oh, I'm broke. You see what I'm saying? So when we can come back to the facts, we can really create amazing boundaries. When we're working from this superficial or this kind of subjective world all the time, we're not creating healthy boundaries. We're not. We're creating our own reality, and sure, that's fine. But when we come back to the facts, right? Everybody's writing facts online. Facts, man. Facts. But is it really a fact? Or is it an opinion? See what I'm saying? Like, opinions change. The ego changes. What is there and real? Brahma, right? God, the universe, that maintains itself. That's constantly expanding. Infinity, that stays, right? The rest is just like added accessories and holographic beautification of this world. So when I speak to someone now, I speak to their best selves. I speak to a version of them where they have, you know, pretty much everything sorted. And once I do that, it really starts to heal them because no one has ever spoken to them like that. No one has ever like seen them in that light. Not even their own families sometimes, And this is what I do with my not only my clients, my friends, my my family. I start to speak to them from this vibe. And it does something. It's a very healing thing to be doing. Very healing. Does anybody have any questions, by the way? I know I'm going to be wrapping up really soon. Okay. So if anybody has any last minute questions you like to ask around boundaries or around anything, doesn't matter to this point. But if you have any final questions, I know one other person joined just right now as well. So yeah, guys, any questions? Fire them off. A rapid fire round. Let's get it. Let's go. Let's go. First question. Don't overthink it. That's a problem to say don't overthink it because, we don't register the word don't. So you're probably overthinking it. Like, oh man, what if I asked the wrong question? Then these two other people. Oh man, I'm having a good time today, guys. There's a sunset outside my window right now. I'm vibing. It's been a good day. It's been a productive day. How do you manage your time? Like time management. Beautiful question. Thank you, Nathan. So the way I see time is very different to how other people see time. You know what I mean? Remus, what's good, brother? 100. In flow state, you can actually distort time, right? You can change time around. You can speed it up or slow it down according to how you want. So throughout my days, through different activities, actually my time distorts. It changes depending on the activity. Okay. Like right here, I've been speaking to you guys for 47 minutes, but it feels like I've been here for, like just 15. Time flies when you're having fun, right? So for time management, it's basically priority management. Okay. What are your main priorities? What is the most urgent and important things that you got to do that day? And do those. The rest you can decide later or delegate or delete them. Right? So that's how I manage my time is I ask myself, what's the most urgent and most important thing that I've got to do today? And I tackle those. Or I schedule them in to the day somehow. Like let's say I have 4 client calls and they're all in a row. Well, those time slots are already booked. You know what I mean for me? So I can't really change those, right? But what I can do is I can take a little break between them to maintain my energy, because the currency is energy, time, money. Am I losing money by managing my time? Am I losing energy by managing my time? It's not going to be sustainable. So you got to manage all three when it comes down to it, right? And so time management is priority management, but not only that is, I forgot what that guy's name is. Eyal Naib or something like that. I forget his name, man. The guy who wrote Hooked. What is his name? Anyway, whatever his name is, man. He says time management is actually pain management. Okay? Because it is our moments of discomfort that we spend a lot of time thinking about it because we're in that survival mode, right? And so if you can reduce your pain or use that pain throughout your day, you're going to manage your time a lot more effectively. And so the most important thing when it comes down to time management is, one, to manage your priorities, understand what's the most important things. Second thing is to schedule things and actually have flow blocks on your calendar. Like this time to this time, I'm spending with my family. This time to this time, I'm complaining, right? This time to this time, I'm watching this show. This time to this time, I'm doing this. And once you have that blocked, you also got to give yourself time for just empty space. Why do I do that? Because sometimes random things will come into your world, right? This is how you don't burn yourself out. This is the cool down periods, right? So if you have little pockets of pressure off with the pressure on, what will happen is something will come up and be like, a friend will text you, hey, man, do you want to come to this party? Randomly, right? Or like someone will come over without even telling you. That's also rude, but you know what I mean? It happens. Anything can happen, right? Throughout our days. We get a message and then we spend hours responding to that message. So schedule those times in as well. Wasted time that you enjoy wasting is never wasted time because it's healing to you. Because you need it to flourish and function and be productive. But don't be productive for the sake of being it or to look busy to the outside world. Do it to actually get the results that you set out to do, right? Does that make sense, Nathan? So yeah, that's how I manage my time. You know, I have this very specific time for these videos. I either start at 3 or 4 every day, PM. That's my time. So every time, every day, no matter what, I do it. You know, there was a hurricane and I did it. If I didn't respond that day, or you know, there's the Wi-Fi doesn't work, I posted to the next day. You know, because that's just that consistency. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. You're welcome, brother. Okay. Any other final questions? We've gone to 51 minutes. Wow, this is a long live stream. But yeah, any final little questions if you guys have. I'm going to, let's say, wait for a minute. Wait for a minute longer. All right. For any questions that might be coming in, let me know ASAP. By the way, I made some money from my event, guys. A Writing Reality. It's quite amazing. We're doing another one in December, so if you guys want to join that, definitely sign up. We're changing lives, you know, really with each event. It's amazing. Just to see the transformations in people, you know, it brings so much joy to my heart, you know, just to see people change on the spot, you know, be unique, be different, be vulnerable, be open, be transformed, because, just because, because, right? All right, so let's see. Nobody's asked any other questions. Thank you so much for being here and being present. Appreciate you. I know you guys have your time throughout the day. Great to hear. Oh, brother, lion all day. Man, Remus, by the way, I was going to say, I think I'm going to start boxing, brother. I'm going to start boxing. I'm going to go into finding a trainer right now. And there's a lot of trainers that are like further away from me, like for travel wise and stuff. So I was wondering, like, can somebody learn? Let me ask you this question, Remus. Can somebody learn boxing from a distance, or do they need that in person, face to face training? I mean, I guess both are beneficial, right? But what would you recommend? Do you recommend that I start like, you know, with just somebody teaching me online or in face to face, or going to, because I really want that like one-on-one, you know, attention. I feel like if I go into a class, that's also pretty far away, but if I go to a class right now, I won't get that, you know, that one-on-one. So I'm really trying to find a trainer one-on-one. But what do you recommend? Yeah, that's what I was thinking, man. Start online, but needs to be in person soon. Yeah. Because I have some gloves. I guess they can bring the pads and things like that over here. There was a chick, but she declined the offer, so I wonder why, right? There's a chick trainer. But yeah, man, no, I found a bunch of other trainers, you know, that seem to be up for it. So maybe I'll start online. And then, okay, when you go into a club, they usually give you one-on-one time at some point. Brilliant. Brilliant. Well, I'm going to be traveling from the 11th, and then I'll be back here on the 22nd, I believe. I'm going to just be in Delhi, not too far away. But when I'm back, like it's going to be like around my birthday time. And then from there, I'm probably going to, get into it. Man, I'm excited. It's going to be lit. All right, man. Once again, thank you for tuning in. Have an incredible day, everybody. May the flow be with you and stay legendary. Let's get it today. Upward Spiral Gang. You already know.